Mike. Thanks for joining us.
It's good to be here.
So I did a little research. So I know are you a third degree black belt?
Third, I should be a fourth, but
Should be,
it hasn't
yeah.
officially been.
Yeah.
It just goes by time at that point. So.
Who are you under?
Rob Kahn.
Okay, nice.
Down in Florida. So he has like a whole network with like Gracie Tampa.
Oh, nice.
But I don't really see him much, so it's long overdue.
Gotcha. So you kind of wait till he comes up here, or you go down there, kind of ordeal. Nice.
Yeah.
So then, how long have you roughly been training?
Around 26 years now.
Holy cow.
Yeah,
That's a long time. Wow.
Yeah, long time.
So you started like when jiu-jitsu was like a completely different sport, basically.
In the 90s.
Yeah. So
in
like
the
leg
90s.
locks, I assume, weren't really even a thing.
They didn't even like them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started doing leg locks and I got ridiculed for
really?
it. In the early 2000s, yeah.
That's crazy. But now that you're obviously a coach, a head coach, are you part owner of Black Hole? Or
I'm the owner.
You are the owner.
and founder.
Okay. I was looking at the website, but I didn't say specifically. How long have you owned Black Hole?
Since it started in my parents' basement. So if you want to go down that road.
Yeah. Tell me.
In a senior of high school, I built like a little room downstairs in my parents' house, and we started teaching down there. So I was 17 when I started teaching.
Oh, wow.
And it just started like with a group of my friends,
Yeah.
And then from there, I moved into a karate studio at like 19, 20 years old, built up a little bit of a clientele, and then opened up my own place when I was 22 or 23.
Oh, wow.
So it's been open now as an official business for about 15, 16 years.
Wow. That's awesome. And do you prefer coaching versus being the actual competitor?
I think I like both.
You like both equally?
I think that I focused a lot more on coaching in my 20s than most people would because I needed an avenue to make money and provide for myself. So
right.
I focused a lot on coaching, and I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I compete now just because it's my way of doing something for me.
Right.
It's
Absolutely.
like a personal thing. And I can still compete at a high level.
Yeah.
And who knows how long that's going to be because, you're racing against time at some point.
Absolutely. I think it's also good for your students to see you compete as well, right? Like
it motivates them.
Yeah.
It motivates them. Yep. And it's like, all right, he can do it. So like we got to follow suit.
Absolutely.
So I think that's why I like to do it too. But, my passion, I think, is coaching for
That's
sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So when you started, you were saying jiu-jitsu was completely different, but obviously in order to be a good coach, you kind of have to stay up with the times. Do you think you do that just from collaborating with other people, or how do you stay?
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody has something different to offer. I try to train with a lot of different people just so that I could get a feel for, different styles and what, the mainstream is doing at the moment. I mean, because if you don't, then you're behind.
Absolutely.
And if I'm behind, then my whole team is behind, my whole network is behind, and then we start losing matches. Yeah. And I'm very competitive. I don't really like losing.
Yeah.
So, but I've been going down, I've been training a little bit with the guys at Bodega. And I think they're great. And
That's
I think
awesome.
their philosophy on things is a little bit different. And I've brought a little bit of that into my own practices. So, that just kind of goes to show you where, my mindset is. It's, jiu-jitsu is always evolving.
100%.
And if I stayed the same, then I'd be rolling the same as I did back in 1997 when I started.
Right.
And that wouldn't do anybody any good.
Right. And that kind of makes me wonder about your opinion on cross-training. Sounds like you're for it because you stay up to date. A lot of people feel like, you kind of stay with your team and that's it. Do you have an opinion on that?
I think you should train with different people.
Yeah.
I think that where a lot of people get it confused, or it's like don't step on people's toes, right? If you have a main gym that you go to, you treat them with respect. You give them that should be your main home.
Yes.
So don't step on their toes. But at the same time, you should also have a coach that encourages you to go and train at different places because that's where you're going to get your different looks.
Right.
And not everybody rolls the same. You go into a tournament, stylistically, someone's going to match up well with you. And you have to learn how to maybe not be better overall, but be better in the moment. And if you don't know how to do that because you're only training at one place, then, you're a little behind. But I think you should only have, a main head coach that works with you and studies for you.
Right. It's like a matter of respect, right? Like, I feel like you can cross-train, but you don't get promoted by someone random. Like,
Correct.
You should stick with, like, your gym for those types of things.
And I think that, if you're cross-training at some place 5 days a week, but only going to your main gym twice a week, I mean, there's a disconnect there.
Absolutely.
But, as far as going other places and going to get some different looks, I'm all for it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like supplementing versus, like you said, like overstepping. So, yeah,
Right.
I agree with you. I think that People look at it as very black and white, like you either do it or you don't. But I think, you can cross train. You just do it in a respectful manner and communicate maybe,
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, absolutely. If you're hiding something, then of course someone's going to take it the wrong way.
Exactly.
But, if you're encouraging it as a coach, then I think they're going to just come up to you and kind of talk about it. So it doesn't really matter.
Absolutely. So I know that you coach now like some pretty high level competitors. What do you think has separated you from other coaches that's allowed you to do that?
think I have a certain eye for talent. I know who to work with and how to put the work in with them. And I always tell my guys, like, it's not a one-way street, right?
Yeah.
Like, you have an open mind. If they meet me halfway, then I'll put all the energy into them.
Yeah.
And a lot of these guys, I've been lucky enough to see them grow up through my kids program.
Wow,
So it starts really young and you kind of build them up from there. And then I also have people like Marissa who have come to me, maybe 3-4 years ago with a completely different style, and you have to learn how to work with them specifically too.
Right.
And I think maybe what sets me apart is that I'm really big on studying and coming up with game plans, and I'm good at it. I'm really good at it. Like I could watch a film, break it down, and know the person's tendencies and come up with a game plan. If you have a super fight, I got you. I got it covered, and my guys trust that. And if I trust them and their abilities, and they trust me and mine as a coach, then that's what sets us apart as a team. Right. And I think it's a collective effort. Yeah. So I can't really take a lot of credit on that. I think it's combined. Right. For sure. And the people I work with, it's a two-way street. And if we're both putting in the work, then good things can happen. Right.
Are there certain attributes you look for in an athlete that lets you know they're going to be worth your time, I guess you could say?
Dedicated, hardworking, and knowing that I don't have to call them every day for practice. That's the biggest thing.
Like self-motivated.
I hate it. Like I've worked with some of the most talented people that you could ever possibly imagine, and they just don't work. Yeah. Like they don't come to class, or I have to stay on them. I'm like, well, you haven't been here for a week. Why haven't you been here? Right. It's always like some different type of excuse. Right. And you see them get to a certain level, and they can go further, and they don't. And that's frustrating. Yeah. That's frustrating. Yeah. So I feel like if you can come in and dedicate the time and effort with me, then you'll go places. Yeah. I think that separates them. So I look for that. I mean, other than that, of course, there's natural talent and abilities.
Of course, yeah. But it's probably like a combination of like natural talent and hard work, I imagine.
Yeah, it's a combination. Just the dedication and putting in the work.
Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned like studying, like you study film, I assume. The only other person I can relate to is like Jay Regalbuto. Like I work a lot with him because he has Illuminati that I am a part of. And I know he spends hours. Are you one of those people that just watches film for like hours and studies it closely?
If we're getting ready for specific opponents or a tournament or a rule set, I'll watch it for a long time. Yeah. But I'll watch it by myself first, and I'll break down, and I'll just keep watching the different matches. Right. And then I bring in my athlete that I'm working with. I'm like, all right, come here. This is what we're working on. Right. And I ask them first. I'm like, what are we doing? Right. I said, what do you see? And I have like a system that I'll break down the film with them on. Like I'll start with match 1, 2, 3, and 4. Right. And I'll be like, what do you see in this? And they'll tell me. Oh, okay. And then I'll be like, what do you see in this? And they'll tell me. And I've already got notes. Right. So I already know what I see and what I'm going to talk to them about, but I want to see what they do.
Right. It's like a classroom almost.
Right. Similar to it. Right. And it's just kind of how we break it down. And then once we come up with a combined game plan on, look, this is what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, then we put it in motion in practices. Okay, gotcha. And then when I set up my practices, like it's all about getting them prepared for their match. Right. I work everybody together with that too. The other people that are in class don't really have the understanding, but the athlete does. Right. They're just learning. Yeah. I used to run camps separate, but I felt like that isolated the athlete and put like, it almost looked like you were favoring one person. Right, it was like a division. And I switched that up. I was like, I'm not about that anymore.
So now you like implement it into the regular
implement it into the class itself.
Gotcha. So it's like the athlete you're working with knows what they're supposed to be working on, but maybe everyone else in the room isn't completely aware.
They're not aware of why we're doing it. Gotcha. They just are like, okay, we're working on this. And we're learning something. Oh, and that's pretty cool. And then I keep these guys, and they'll notice that I'll give a little bit more attention because I like to watch and coach. Of course. Because my voice travels a decent amount. So they'll see that I'm working with them a little bit more, but I always scan the room. Like I don't ever stop walking during my practices. Right. I'm always walking around. It's like I'm a hawk.
Yeah.
and I just watch everybody.
Yeah.
You know, I may be giving a little bit more attention to the athlete itself, but the whole room needs my attention.
Are you a black belt on the mats, but a white belt around your house? No problem. Independence Interior Systems is here to save the day. They remodel bathrooms, kitchens, basements, floors. They fix and install electric, plumbing, and so much more. Don't tap out on DIY projects. Let Independence Interior Systems free up your time to let you focus on the black belt you're meant to be. Call 856-230-5987 for a free estimate. If you're in the South Jersey area, that's 856-230-5987. Absolutely.
So if I stop walking, then I feel like I'm not watching enough.
Right.
So
Is this just more so for super fights, or what if somebody's just doing like an ADCC? It doesn't matter.
I'll give a perfect example. Is like my guy Matt did combat jiu-jitsu in February. It's a purple belt, 19.
Yeah.
You know, so we didn't have a specific opponent that he was getting ready for. You don't know that until the day before.
Right.
But we knew the rule set. Like, I've competed in combat jiu-jitsu, so
Right.
I knew what you had to do. And there's a lot of differences as far as sport jiu-jitsu, and then when you add the element of strikes.
Yeah.
On like
How do you
to
practice
do
that?
You know, I actually, it's funny. I have it implemented in my schedule permanently.
Really?
Once or twice a week.
Oh, wow.
To catch everybody else up, so that this way when we do
Yeah.
camps, everybody else has an understanding of what we're supposed to do.
Right.
I'm really big on drilling.
So are you allowing the striking?
During that
Really?
practice, yeah, it's an hour practice.
Huh. That must be interesting to watch. I would like to see.
It's regulated.
Right.
It's structured. Like, I have a whole curriculum on it now,
That's cool.
and it's a lot of fun. I like it.
Yeah.
But for him, it was just a matter of getting him used to the rule set, taking his strengths and implementing it into the tournament itself. And when we first started camp, I was a little worried. I was like, if he goes out there and just he competes well and has a good showing, I'm happy. He's
Right, of
young. He's a
course.
purple belt. We're good.
Yeah, I mean, he's amazing. Yeah.
By the end of camp, I was like, he could win it.
Wow.
I was like, he could win it. There's not a doubt in my mind. I really think he could do it. And then we got there, and we were watching. He was at the end of the first round. So we were watching all the matches.
Right.
And I just looked at him, and I was like, you could do this.
Yeah.
You know, I know what you're capable of doing.
Yeah.
And we just looked, and he was like, yeah, I can do it. He's like, I can do
that
it. And I was like, all right,
confidence.
let's go. And like, it just ran from there. It was as close to
awesome.
perfect as you could possibly imagine.
That's awesome.
And that was pretty cool. So that's how I like to run it as far as, you know, tournaments or what you have to do.
Right. And, you know, it's interesting you're bringing this up because yesterday I went to Nicky Rod's seminar, and he was saying that there's a lot of people that think when they're on the big stage, all of a sudden they can just do things that they don't practice in every day, right? It's like, I never practice combat, but when I'm up there, like, I'll do great. And the truth is, if you're not practicing exactly what you're going to do on the stage, you're not going to do well. Right. And you're honestly one of the first people that have told me you've implemented combat jiu-jitsu in your curriculum, and I feel like that must make a huge difference
because now I have people that can work with the guys that are getting ready for
exactly. He has partners.
He has partners, and I had done that just on the fly.
That's really cool.
Just through drills and stuff, and I was like, no, if we're going to do this again, I want more people to have an understanding.
Yeah.
So my class on Tuesdays has a decent amount of people that just come in and work.
So cool.
And now they have an understanding of what positions we're using, why we use them,
right?
How to strike when to strike hard, when to just strike for movement, controlling the hips. Like, it's a very different game.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. Have you found, like, what's the feedback you're getting? Are people, like, intimidated to try that class for the first time?
At first, it was really small. There was like 4 or 5 people.
Yeah, right?
And I was like, don't worry, we'll grow it.
Yeah.
And now there's like 15 to 20 each class. And it's going to keep growing, I think.
That's cool.
Because once people understand, like, this isn't Fight Club.
Yes.
This is a structured practice with...
You're not just slapping the crap out of each
other. Right, exactly. And it also gives you an understanding of, like, what may and may not work when you actually have to use jiu-jitsu, because it simplifies the game a little bit. It's a good hybrid set of rules. I really like it.
Yeah. To be honest, from an outsider, you know, it does just look like you go out there and when you have an opportunity, you just slap, you palm strike the crap out of somebody. But now that I'm talking to you, it makes sense. Like, you really have to be strategic about it, right? Because you have to do it in a way that allows, I imagine, you to open up movement to advance to a new position, right?
Yeah.
You're not just haphazardly palm striking.
Correct.
It's intentional.
You strike for movement, you strike, to try and knock someone out for some positions,
Yes.
but it's rare that I have my guys throwing full force
Just
because it
random.
opens you up to the jiu-jitsu aspect of it.
Right.
Right? It's not MMA. It's a middle ground. It's a nice
Yes.
hybrid.
Yeah.
So really high-level jiu-jitsu guys can overcome the striking element because they can use it to go underneath the person, attack the legs, and
That's
off-balance
really,
you.
really cool. That's
Mm-hmm.
awesome. Yeah, I don't think I've heard of anybody else doing that. So if anybody's listening, I think you should drop in and try some combat jiu-jitsu. I would like to honestly at least see the class. It sounds really cool.
And we have a lot of girls there too, which is cool.
I was going to ask you, because obviously I can imagine it could be a little intimidating. Has it grown now? You do have quite a bit of women?
Yeah, we have a decent
Cool.
amount of women that actually take the combat jiu-jitsu.
Is
So I
Marissa
think
in there
there's
slapping people?
She's in there. She's in there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, actually, you know, it's funny. Marissa helps a lot with the leg locks with the guys.
Right.
Because she's very good at it. She's very skilled.
is, yeah.
So instead of having her go in and just have it be a free-for-all, and, you know, what's she getting out of it?
Of
Nothing,
course.
because she's going to get hit.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, now you have to worry about injuries,
Yep.
right? But she's very, very good at getting into certain positions with leg entanglements. So I'm like, all right, start here, work out, and we work a drill.
Yeah.
You know, and they're able to do certain things, and she'll exploit their weaknesses. If they make a mistake, she's hitting it.
Right.
You know, and
Good.
I trust her technique. So,
Yeah.
you know, there's certain ways that you could get around the element of, you know, man and woman and the striking element.
Right, which honestly brings up a good point. In regular jiu-jitsu, as a coach, you have to really monitor, you know, men and women going together, or even different size differences, same gender. How is that with combat jiu-jitsu? Do you find that the men pull back the correct amount? Do you have to really monitor them?
I don't really have them work
Go
together
together?
unless
Okay.
I really trust them.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a really big thing.
Yeah,
so
'cause that'd be
there's
hard.
like a group of, you know, 4 to 6 women that come almost every day.
And they work together.
And they're pretty good at jiu-jitsu too.
Good.
So they work together.
Okay.
And then I keep the men kind of separate. You
Yeah.
know, Marissa's a little bit different because a lot of the guys that are getting ready for combat jiu-jitsu, because we'll have 2 in December, are around her size.
Gotcha.
And she can work with them. And she's worked
Okay.
with them before.
Gotcha. And like you said, she's working on like specific things such as leg locks, so they're not just slapping her
Exactly.
around randomly.
Exactly. And those guys know, like, don't do that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I can imagine as a coach, that's just another thing you have to like really be vigilant about, right?
Yeah, no, I don't play with that.
Yeah. And in general, getting back to regular jiu-jitsu, how do you handle that as a coach? You know, I've talked to a lot of coaches on here, and, you know, 90% of the time you have guys that understand how to roll with anybody, but every so often you don't. How
Yeah.
do you handle that?
I mean, look, I always have the theory that it weeds itself out. You know,
That's
I watch
true.
it. You know, I watch it, and if I feel like some guy's just going to be a spaz, number one, you don't put a woman with them.
Yes.
Or someone smaller. You know, it's not even just women. It's, you know, what about a smaller person that can't
Yeah.
hold up to that pace, you know? And you keep them with people that can.
Yes.
And then you have the conversation with them. Like, listen, you can't do that.
Right.
You cannot roll with people that way. You're going to hurt somebody.
Yeah.
And that's a hazard to the class itself.
Absolutely.
And I can't have that.
Yeah.
You know, and most of the time, 9 times out of 10, people have that understanding and they work themselves into the system. Every once in a while, you have that one person that doesn't, and they don't last too long.
Yeah, yeah. Or if they do last, everyone avoids them like
Yeah,
the
they
plague.
avoid, and I'm like, well, you're wondering why you don't have
Yeah,
a
you don't
partner
have a
right now.
partner.
It's like you have no friends. You're the stinky kid in class right now.
No,
You know?
literally,
So,
yeah.
But most of the time, we're pretty good on that.
Yeah, and I feel like it really does set the tone from the top, right? Like you don't have a tolerance for it, it weeds itself out. I feel like the only time is when the coach doesn't set a good standard, then you start getting
Then
into
you
problems.
get yeah.
Yeah.
Too many Chiefs and not enough Indians in the room is a
Exactly.
problem.
Exactly.
So.
So besides combat jiu-jitsu, are there any other things you've implemented in your program that's like specific to competition?
I feel like every class that I teach is as close to a pro practice as you can get.
Oh, really cool.
Even if I call it mixed levels, I'm always trying to prepare for something coming up.
Right.
You know, and if I notice that, all right, we're all getting ready for EBI.
Right.
You know, we're all getting ready for this. This is the rule set that we're going to focus on in practices. This is why, and then we go from there.
Oh, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Do you have anything big coming up right now with any of your competitors?
So we have Matt and Darren are going to be doing the 155 combat jiu-jitsu.
Nice. Yeah.
And then I'll be competing the next day in EBI at 170.
Nice.
So that's pretty
Awesome.
cool. And then we have a bunch of people getting ready for matches in the meantime that are all sub only. So we're kind of just focusing in on that.
Yeah, so you guys have a lot coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think I follow Matt. I know he's been doing like a ton of stuff in the past year, 2 years,
It's
right?
like every weekend he's got
he
me
like
doing
took
something.
off. Did he start with you?
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool.
Yeah, he started my kids program.
And he's a purple belt?
He's a purple belt now, yeah.
Gotcha. So he's, as we would say, like homegrown. So that must be cool for you to see.
Yeah,
right?
it's great. Yeah, and I have a few guys like that in my program right now. And
That's
I
awesome.
think that when you see them grow up in your program, it makes it that much better.
Absolutely.
You know, like I know where he started. And it's funny because I don't teach my kids program anymore. My daughter's in the class now, and like I did my coaching voice, and she looked at me like this. I was like, I think it's time for me to retire from this. Yeah, I'm gonna have to separate a little bit.
Oh, that's funny.
But I had been grooming Matt to do it for a while.
Nice.
And I was like, look, this is going to be your program now.
Yes.
And you know, run it the way that you saw me do it.
Right.
You know, but put your own spin on it.
Absolutely.
And he's done that.
Good.
And he's fantastic.
He's
fantastic
awesome.
with the kids. He's a great coach on top of being a competitor. Yeah. And he's 19.
I was just going to say he's young.
He's young.
Yeah.
So for him to be able to do that,
cool.
It is phenomenal.
That's
but
really
he
cool.
grew up in the program. He saw how I trained with the kids, right? And I'm tough on the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember one time I just lashed them. We had like he was in the class, and I lined them all up, and I was so mad. Like they were just being so bad, horrible. And there were a lot of really good kids in that class, and I lined them up, and I was like, listen. When I was 16 years old, I waited for kids like you to walk into my bracket so I could beat every one of you. And they just looked at me like, oh, he's crazy. And from that point on, they were great for like the next 2 months until I had to do the same thing. So he understands what I'm looking for.
It's so funny. Now, I help coach kids as well. And it's like this fine line between like, you know, they are kids, but if you give them too much room, they take total advantage.
They'll run with it.
They run with it. And when I started coaching, I was way too nice because I felt so bad to like even raise my voice. And then you learn real fast that you either stay on them or they walk all over you.
Oh, they'll walk all over you. And they know too. They're smart.
They know. It's like the substitute teacher. Like if we have a new coach cover, totally different kids. It's like you would not do that crap with like me or Coach Jeremy, but with a new person, they take full advantage.
It's on.
Yes.
It's on.
But once you develop those relationships, and I'm sure you see this, like they do respect you and, you know, really act a lot better.
And I see that as a feeder system as like, okay, somewhere in this class, there's going to be someone special.
100%.
You don't know because they're young. Like I didn't know Matt was going to be good.
Yeah.
I knew he was talented, but you don't know because a lot of them drop out when they're teenagers or they find something different.
True.
So there's always a drop off,
100%.
right? But there's going to be someone in that program that's going to grow into it and become special.
Yep.
Whether it be 1 in 100, but that one kid that does make it through, that's the one you want to keep. And 100%. That's what that program is for.
Yeah. And I always joke, I'm like, in like 5 years, they're going to be beating me up. So I have to be somewhat nice to them, you know?
Yeah.
But it is cool. As the program grows, I noticed then you have the kids helping the new kids. And it almost becomes easier because when they're all new, it's like disastrous. But then when the kids start catching on, when you get these new kids walking in the door, the older kids are now setting a new standard.
Yes.
And everyone follows.
Yes.
And that seems to help, right?
You have your leaders that have been there for a while, and then it goes down from there. It's very similar to your adults program, you know, and that's the way it has to be. Once you form that good nucleus of kids, students, everything else trickles down.
It's true.
You know, and then it starts with the coach too. If the coach puts them in their positions and works with them the right way, they'll go with it.
100%. Yeah. So did you start the kids program immediately when you started your gym or did it come later?
I started it right away.
Okay.
And so not in my basement, but like when we started.
Yeah, when you were at the actual, what ages is it broken out?
So right now, since it's grown, I split it up. So I start my youngest at 3.
Yep,
so
same.
from 3 to 5, 3 to 6 years old. And then I move them up between 7 and 8. It depends on how mature the kid is,
of course,
you know. And then from 8 to 13, and then when they're around 14, I try to move them up into adults fundamentals first to see how they kind of handle it.
That's cool.
Because you don't want to intimidate them.
Yeah.
I don't want to like throw them into the wolves.
Yep.
And even when they're good, sometimes it'll be a little bit too much for them. They like look around, they're like, I don't want to come back.
Yeah, I can see that.
So I start them in the adults fundamentals, see how they handle it first, and then we move them to mixed levels with me.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Yeah, so I break it down that way. But at first, like I just had everyone kind of combined. You know, because you have to.
Yeah, you have no choice.
You have no choice.
Do you have a lot of families at your gym, or is it more separate? Like, are the kids with the parents training kind of thing?
There's a decent amount.
Yeah.
You know, not as many as you may think, but I have a lot of like fathers that train with me in the adults program, and then they're their kids train in the juniors and Mighty Mites.
Okay, because we have just recently some 14-year-olds bump up now to the adult class, but it just so happens their parents train. So I think that's helped bridge that gap of intimidation because they went from kids their age to now they're with adults, but their mom or dad's in the class.
Yeah.
And I think that is a big help.
Yeah, I have someone like that too. It's a kid named Lucas. His dad trains with me, has for a long time.
Yeah.
And he just moved right in and he's completely fine.
That's helpful, I think. Yeah. I also notice like sometimes when our 5-year-olds move up, it's like such a big difference. It's like they're top of the 3 to 5. And then when they move to the 6 to whatever, 6 to 9 or 10, they're very intimidated.
Yeah. See, I actually have the reverse issue with that is I feel like they've grown out of the Mighty Mites program so much that when it's time to move up, they love it because they're getting more.
Yeah.
I keep them in there a little
like
bit
a little
longer
almost.
maybe than I should have, but I do that on purpose so that this way we don't get that.
That's smart.
To where they're not
I like
intimidated.
that.
They're eager to learn.
Right.
And you could tell because like they may be looking around and they're kind of losing interest in the younger class.
And then you bump
So
them.
I'm like, it's time. And then you can even see that their behavior kind of gets better.
Yes.
Because they're into the class itself again. Whereas before they really weren't interested, so they mess around.
Yeah.
Almost looking for attention.
Yes. Oh, yes. Trust me. I know exactly
Yeah,
what you're talking about. 100%. You're like, oh God, what can we do to like help this kid? I like to just give them tasks when they start doing that. I'm like, you help me set up the cones? Like I give them stuff to do because they're literally bored.
They're bored.
Yeah. Do you do like certain like more promotions to keep them like engaged?
Every
for
3
kids?
months for kids.
Okay.
So
That's actually pretty spread out for kids.
Yeah. I don't like to push the belts as much because then they look for it as far as like a way of immediate gratification, and I try to get away from that a little bit. I don't even I don't do charging for belt testing or anything like that. I kind of keep it a little bit more old school.
Yes.
But still we do it a little bit more often than we do the adults program. I hate doing promotions, to be honest.
Do you?
If it were up to me, I would just be like, all right, we're all just coming into training. I hate it.
And why so?
Self of entitlement, and I feel like the mats don't lie. Like I feel like there's so many like blue and purple belts now that could beat black belts just
100%.
because they're just such young savages.
Yep.
But then they're in a blue and purple belt tournament and they're destroying people. So
or vice versa, right?
And I don't know. I feel like the sport's evolved so much, and I don't really train in the gi hardly at all anymore. So if it was up to me, I'd just keep it. It's just like we're just doing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, you're just doing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah,
right.
I understand there has to be ranks.
In order to like separate it.
Trust me, I get that part too. But I don't know. I hate it. I just don't like doing them.
It's almost like they could separate it, but it's like you sign up for what you think. Like if you want to advance, like good luck.
Good luck. If you're not ready, you're gonna find out.
Exactly. Yeah. Do you have gi classes?
One night.
Okay.
One night, Friday night, and I don't teach it. So,
Okay.
I have rolled in the gi a little bit more recently just because they've kind of guilted me into it.
Okay. Sounds like my friends.
Yeah, so I'm like, all right, fine, I'll put it back on. But I've competed at black belt in the gi.
That's cool.
In IBJJF and that type of stuff. So I've done it. I don't enjoy the game as much. I think it's very old school.
It's slow.
And it's very slow and grip based. And I'm like, I like to move.
I'm the same way. But then other people have the argument, especially as people get older, they like being able to slow down these really athletic young men and women because it's a lot, right? Do you promote in no-gi then? Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. We promote. It's the same system.
Yeah.
As if you were wearing a gi.
You just tie the belt around.
I just tie the belt around them. Yeah. Cool. I used to like have everybody put their gis on, and then I was like, why am I even doing that? With half these guys don't even know how to tie their belts anyway. I'm like, we're just gonna do it no gi.
I'm not a gi person, but I have a lot of girlfriends that started in the gi, and they're always like, but you could do so much more in the gi. And I'm like, it's hot, sweaty, and I hate how slow it is. It bores me.
And you can't cross your foot over the hip.
Yep.
You get disqualified right away.
Yeah, can't reap. Yeah, you can't do any of that
stuff. You can't do half the leg locks either.
Yeah. And as far as like the sport evolving, like no-gi is what's evolving the sport, right? Like
it's much more spectator friendly.
Of course.
Much more. I mean, I think people can relate to it. When you put the gi on, they view it more as karate. I know that sounds ridiculous because of course it's not karate. But And I have a respect for the gi, even though I don't enjoy it.
Yes.
I do have a respect for it, so I don't want people thinking I'm disrespecting it, because I know people do love it. But I think that's what people correlate it to, and that's why it's never going to be where no gi jiu-jitsu is right now.
Oh no, 100%. The second I try to explain to my friends what a gi is, they're like, oh, okay, karate. I'm like, oh my god.
No, yeah.
I'm like mortified. I'm like, please don't put me in that realm.
Yeah. Yep.
Do you are you like an ADCC type of person? IBJJF? What's like your go-to?
I like ADCC much more
The
than
rule set better?
IBJJF. I have a little bit of an issue with the federation.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very biased, and the rule set is very biased. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, if you're not part of a certain amount of teams, then I always tell my guys, just go into the match thinking you're down 2-0.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
down 2-0. You got to fight for it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, look, and if you sign up for the rule set, don't complain.
Of course. Yeah.
You know, don't complain. I mean, I've been on the losing side of some really, really bad calls on that.
Mm-hmm.
And I really just don't enjoy it. It's not the type of element that I like to put my guys in, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't like being there having to coach that.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit annoying, but hey, listen, you know, you want to be a world champ or a Pan Am champ, you have to do the tournament.
You gotta
So,
do it.
you
Do you
know,
have
and
any-
you sign up for it and you just go for it.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Like a lot of people do complain. It's like, well, you knew what you were getting into. It
Mm-hmm.
might suck, but do you have any students out there right now doing no-gi?
No, because any of the guys that I would have put out there are all getting ready
For the combat.
December,
Yeah.
or they have matches coming up.
Gotcha.
And then you have to travel.
I know.
So we sat this one out.
I know. I was just saying, like, Amanda Levy, Amanda Mazza, a bunch of these people are out there right now, and I'm like, crazy how they just go. Like, they're out in Texas. Some of them are flying back after they compete tonight and then coaching tomorrow. Like, it's a hustle. Like,
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a grind to get out there and do it. And I have been seeing, some calls that people aren't thrilled about, so it's interesting.
Yeah.
But you got to do it, right?
You do it. You just
Yeah.
take it for what it is.
Yeah. What would you say was the most, like, either exciting or, like, the biggest match you've ever been able to be a part of coaching?
That's a tough question.
Yeah. Or maybe your favorite.
I don't even know. I feel like each one of them is kind of special in their own right, because you're working with that person. And in that moment, it's important for that person.
Yes.
And of course, for me, like, it's important, but it's even more so important for the competitor. So as far as coaching is concerned, I have a really hard time separating what's important and what's not, because I think each match matters, you know? So to pick one out, I don't know. I don't know. And it's tough. It's really tough.
Any, like, big upsets or anything?
Man, I mean, I would have to say the most recent one was Matt.
Matt?
The most recent one was Matt
And
in
who
Combat
was...
Jiu-Jitsu.
the combat one.
Yeah, the Combat
Okay.
Jiu-Jitsu, because no one thought he was going to do anything.
Yeah.
No one.
That was his first experience with that,
It
right?
was his first. He was like, I want to do this.
Yeah.
And I said, all right. And I hit up Eddie that day. We were on the plane. I forget where we were coming home from. We were doing some tournament.
Yeah.
I don't even remember. He had competed. And I was like, he's like, I want to do this. He
You're like,
messaged
"All right."
me. I said, all right. And I messaged Eddie that day. And he got back to me. And he put him in the bracket.
That's awesome.
And, you know, when you get your opportunity, you have to take it and you
Yeah.
got to run with it. And that's what he did. And I just thought it was awesome. I was
is
so
awesome.
proud of him. So I think the most recent one, my memory's really bad too. So I think the most recent one would be Matt's.
When
and
was
just
that?
February.
Okay, yes, it's fairly
February.
recent.
So it's fairly recent.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that whenever I get asked that question,
It'll
that's the one I'll
change.
turn to.
Yeah.
But it'll change.
Yeah.
It'll
No,
change.
that is
Give me
cool,
another
though.
year.
But that is cool, though, because that was something that you guys, buckled down. It sounds like you really did the studying for it. And, the hard work worked
Yeah.
out.
And no one thought he would do anything.
Yeah.
I was like, listen, man. I was like, you don't have to worry about what anybody else thinks. I said, you have to believe in yourself.
Yes.
And I said, and if you believe in yourself, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
I said, because you have the ability to do it, you just have to trust that you can.
Right.
And I said, and if you don't think that way, then you come and talk to me, because I believe you could do it, or I wouldn't put you in the position.
That's awesome.
And that's what we did. And the work that was put into it, not just by me, but not just by him, but by everybody involved, just kind of coming together. Really, it was special. And
That's
I think
awesome.
it was a team effort. And
That's
I think
really
that's what
cool.
was the best about it.
Yeah. Now, whether for your competitors or even for yourself, if you lose, how do you handle it? Do you watch your
I
match
hate
right
it.
away?
I hate it. I always tell everybody, take 24 hours.
Okay.
Take 24 hours
Yep.
because your emotions are running high. And I hate the saying, oh, well, if you lose, you learn. Like, yeah, okay. Like, that doesn't make it feel any better.
Of course.
Like, yeah, sure, maybe I'll take something out of this. because if you don't, then you're just going to keep making the same mistakes, you know. But like, I feel like that's kind of like a consolation prize, a consolation mindset, and I'm just not about that, you know. You compete and you perform to the level that you want to, and if you put the effort in, then losing, I guess you could say, is a little bit easier, because you understand that you were the best version of yourself.
Right.
And that's what I try to tell my guys, and that's what I walk into the mats with. It's like, listen, I've done the work, I've done everything that I can. Let's see where this goes.
Yes.
And I can do it. And if it's not there, it's not there. And then you go back to the drawing board and you go for it.
Right.
And you make the adjustments and you go. But I don't think there's any excuses or anything that you could say to make it better.
Right.
You know, there's always going to be a loser, and there's always going to be a winner. That's just the guarantee in competition.
Yeah.
And there's no consolation prizes in jiu-jitsu. You know, sure, it's first, second, and third in some podiums, but other than that, you know, you go into some other things and it's either one person's getting paid and everybody else isn't.
100%.
You know, and I don't want my guys to have the mindset of it's okay to lose. Right. It's a necessary evil, and you have to learn how to understand it and move on. But if you're competing, you don't want to.
Right. It's not, you don't want to make it like too okay.
Yeah, you don't want to make it too okay.
Where you're going to concede almost.
Correct. And it's like, look, we've all messed up. We've all had bad matches. We've all, like, no one goes undefeated. It is what it is. But you take that 24 hours, you process it, you say, okay, what do we do now?
Right.
And then we go back to the drawing board and we make it better.
Yeah. So do you usually, like, say you're coaching, they lose, give them 24 hours. Do you then say, let's sit down and watch the match and see where it went wrong? Is that kind of your go-to?
Yeah, at the highest level, yeah.
Yeah.
And I try to videotape as many matches as I can, even at, like, my younger guys, my young talent that isn't really ready for any of the upper belt matches yet.
Yeah.
But I'll still watch it. And that's what I'll put my curriculum around my classes. I'm like, if we all go to a tournament and there's like 10 guys doing the same thing wrong, I was like, well, we need to work on it.
Right, exactly.
You know?
So there is something good that comes from it in that aspect, right? It's
absolutely.
Like, I mean, that's why I think everybody should at least try to compete, because you find your holes.
But at the same time, I do the same off wins. I will watch the videos and I'll find out something that went wrong and I'll watch it. Yeah. So my mindset really, it's not if I lost, it's how do I get better all the time.
That's true.
Yeah. You know?
And not to dwell too much on
you can't go too high on your wins and you can't go too low on your losses. You have to find that middle ground and keep going.
Yeah.
And you work the same either way. Right? Like, you can't push too hard. If you lose, you end up getting hurt. You're going to get burnt out. There's a whole thing with that.
Yeah.
And then if you get too lazy when you win because you think you're too good, that's when you're going to get your butt kicked.
100%. I think Amanda Levy was the one who told me that when she was talking to her mindset coach, it was just like you said. Like, he was basically like, you need to be indifferent with winning and losing. Like you just said, like when you win, you shouldn't be celebrating to the point where you don't think you still need to be putting in 100% work moving forward. And when you lose, it can't be like catastrophic where you need to like, pick yourself up the next day. Like you kind of need to be indifferent. Like I won, awesome, back to work. Yeah. I lost, sucks, back to work. Yeah. Like kind of be indifferent.
I mean, and look, everybody's going to have emotions on how they deal with it. Of course, I get pissed. I get so mad. I'm like, oh my God, this sucks, you know? But it is what it is. Yeah. You can't change the result. You can only change what you do going forward.
Yeah. And it's really hard because jiu-jitsu is such a personal thing. Like it's not a team effort at the end of the day. Like when you're out there, it's you against your opponent. And like when you lose, it's like you can't blame it on your other teammate. Like it is like it's all your fault. It really is all your damn fault. So it's hard not to take it personally.
Yeah, of course. Of course. But the best always find a way.
100%.
You always find a way.
You got to bounce back.
You got to bounce back and you got to do it.
Yeah. And that's something I've learned from, like I compete once in a while, but from being friends with these high level competitors, the way they bounce back, like you would think that they never lose because it's like they could lose, they go right back out there the next week. Like there's no time for them to dwell. And you really have to be that way. You have to be like, I don't give a shit. I'm going back out the next day. And it's hard. It's hard to do that. It's hard to not dwell.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's the special ones that know how to do it.
100%. Is there anything like you say or do to certain athletes? I imagine it depends on their emotions and their personality. Yeah. But is there a certain way you kind of handle people?
Like you said, it's very individually based at that point. Yeah. Some guys get really upset and angry, and then I'm real calm. Okay. Yeah. You know, like I got to calm them down somehow. Yeah. You know, and then, you have the person that's really emotional and almost gets sad about it, and you got to learn to build them back up. You know, because like we talked about, if you don't know how to learn to build them back up, then they're just going to stay in that gutter.
100%.
And they're never going to regroup and be able to move on.
Yeah.
So you have to really know how to work with the person that at hand.
Yeah.
I think that there's more than one way of doing things at that point.
I think a lot of people don't realize that, like, coaching, you have to almost be a therapist.
Similar.
It's so
similar.
true. Like, you can be the best athlete in the world, but if you don't know how to, like, work with people and their emotions, like, you can't really teach them shit.
Yeah, and I think that's where I've grown a lot too. I used to have like a very cut and dry way of doing things, and it's almost come to the point where, like, life throws you different things. You have to learn how to adapt to it.
Yeah.
And then once I've done that, I'm like, okay, wait a minute here. Take a step back and look at how you dealt with, people from the past, and could you have done better?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Of course. That's how you learn.
Absolutely. And I think that's helped me grow as a coach too.
Yeah, definitely.
Huge difference.
Yeah. And I mean, yourself, when you're competing, I'm sure you know how you want to be spoken to, and that you can kind of reflect on that as well, right?
Yeah.
You said you have a daughter, and how old is she?
She's 5.
Okay, so she's still doing jiu-jitsu then?
She's doing it, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you think she's going to stick with it and compete one day? Too early to
I
tell?
don't know. She likes it. She doesn't argue with me about going to class. She just started kindergarten.
Nice.
So her schedule was a little bit off because she gets out of school like an hour before her class would start.
Right.
And she would be tired.
Right.
All right. I was like, I get it. I get it. But she's like, I want to go. She's like, kept saying, I want to go.
Yeah.
I said, okay. So what I do now is I go and I pick her up from school at dismissal, which saves me 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So she could come home, relax, and then go to class.
Nice. Give her a little break.
Give her a little bit of a break, and then she goes and she loves it.
Oh, that's nice.
No issues. When she's in class, she enjoys it.
That's good.
And to be honest with you, as long as she likes it
and
enjoys like just being in class and enjoys learning, I really don't care if she competes.
100%.
I really could care less. I feel like the people that push their kids to compete too much are like the parents that maybe haven't accomplished it themselves. And I'm not like that.
Yep.
I've had my own things that I've done, and I hope that for her, being a father, it take jiu-jitsu out of it. I just hope that she finds something that she's passionate about as much as I love jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So if she loves jiu-jitsu as much as I do, well, fantastic. Then we have something in common.
Yes.
But I would like her to at least know enough to where, like, I don't have to worry about her, especially being a woman.
No, that's very healthy of you to say, because I'm sure you can agree as a coach, you see the parents that are living vicariously through their children. And it's great to see parents want their kids to be successful, but there is a fine line that we all see where it's like, do you want your kid to do this because they enjoy it, or is this your passion that you're forcing upon your kid, right? And that's the fine line you have to be careful of. They say, like, you can't make your kid love something, but you can make them hate it, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And I've seen parents, at competitions or wherever, and I'm watching and I'm like, your kid's gonna hate jiu-jitsu because you're making them hate it.
Oh my God, and they're screaming and yelling. The best is like watching them. They're like, just get up.
Yeah, just get up.
Like, okay.
You
like,
get out there and train.
You get up out of mount position. Just stand up out of it.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yep. Screaming. I mean, you saw recently the guy, that was going
he
viral.
The kid off, right?
Yeah. And that's a perfect example. Like, people just get way too emotionally involved, and it's like, these are children at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like, these are
ones.
these are little kids. You shouldn't be cursing at them, and they're kids. So I have a problem with that. When I see that line being crossed where now it's like not for the child, I think that's not right.
Yeah, it's not okay. It's too much. And some kids are very self-motivated and they don't even need it.
Yeah.
They don't need it, and the parents push them too much. And I'm like, you're doing him an injustice.
Yeah.
He's doing so well, or she's doing so well. Like, he doesn't need that push.
Right. And they're kids.
Sometimes, of course, like, the kids get a little lazy or something and they really like it. That's when you as a parent can be like, listen, you got to go. Right. You got to go. Like, you haven't been going as much. This is what you chose to do. Now go do it.
Right.
That's different.
100%.
But to constantly push them and be a helicopter parent, I have a real issue with that.
Me too. Like, when I was a kid, if I joined a sport, like, because, you're a kid, you, like, give up on things easily. If I, like, halfway through soccer season, for instance, didn't want to do it, my parents would be like, too bad. Like, you signed up for it. You're going to finish out the season. If you don't want to do it next year, cool. But you're going to finish what you started. I think that's a healthy boundary. But then I'm sure you've seen parents that are, like, on the sidelines and they're practically doing the move on the mat because they're so far coaching their child. It's like, let us coaches do the job. We don't need you, jumping down your child's throat. Like, let them take class, right? How do you handle that? Like, have you had parents that are, like, on the sidelines while you're trying to coach?
Kick them out.
Do you actually?
Yeah, I don't kick the kid out.
No, you kick the parent.
Kick the parent out. Yeah,
I know.
for sure. They're not allowed on mat side. So the way
Gotcha.
my school is now, we just remodeled it anyway, but we have the matted area, and then we have a waiting room and a lounge area, and then
Oh.
there's a lounge area over on the side too.
Oh,
And
okay.
they are not allowed to talk during
Wow.
class to their kids at all.
I like that.
Yeah, it just takes away their focus.
It
It takes
does.
away their mindset. They should be focused on their coach, and it's actually unsafe.
Yeah.
It is unsafe for a child to not be focused on the jujitsu coach, because now they're focused more on what their parents are saying, and they're looking over, and in the meantime they're trying to do jujitsu. So
Yeah.
that's not safe for them to
I
do.
agree with
You
you.
know, we both know training wise you have to be focused on what you're doing,
100%.
or you end up getting hurt, or that it puts a higher percentage of that happening.
I've seen the exact example you're given. I've seen a child on like bottom, parents screaming, they're trying to look back, and
And
it's
they
like how
always
could
look.
yeah, how could you be doing jujitsu while you're cranking your neck? Like it just doesn't make sense. And half the time the parents saying the wrong thing anyway. So
Exactly.
it's
Exactly.
like
It's taking
what
away
the hell?
all of it. And what's funny is that I go, and as I said, I don't teach my kids programs anymore, but I'm always involved.
Yeah.
Always. I'm always there. I always watch.
Yeah.
And I still let my coaches coach.
Yep.
Like, this is their program.
You don't overstep.
Of course, Matt runs it, but then there's 3 or 4 other guys that assist, and they're fantastic.
Yeah.
They do a great job. And my daughter takes the class, and I still don't say anything.
Right.
I sit and I watch. And there are times, trust me, I get it. I have to bite my tongue because I'm watching her, and I'm like, she's being so bad right now.
Yeah.
I'm like, they'll handle it. And I've had to tell them, I'm like, I don't care if it's my daughter. You make sure that she behaves and is in line with everybody else.
Yeah, no
Because
special
there's no
treatment.
special treatment here. And they understand that. And they've since done it. But,
Yeah.
if I'm able to do it and I sit there and I'm the head coach of my whole network,
Yeah.
then how can you not?
100%.
You know,
Yeah.
how can you not? You have to allow the coaches to do their job. I trust them. I put them in the position for a reason. Now allow them to do it.
Exactly. And that's my thing. I always say, I'm like, you're paying for your child to be here and to be instructed by professionals. So like, why even pay if you're going to sit here and coach them? Now, before you had the separate waiting area, have you had like backlash from asking a parent to leave or to stop talking, or no big deal really?
I've had a couple dropouts here and there from it, but you know what?
Is what it is.
It is what it is. I'd rather I'll replace it.
Yep.
You always try to do that anyway. So there's always a drop off in this type of business.
Yeah.
And I'd rather have my students be in a safe environment and understand that it's not individually based like that, and move on.
Yeah.
And now that we have it, even with the waiting room, they still creep. I've noticed every once in a while, like you'll see a few parents trickle in, and I'm pretty lenient with that type
Yeah.
of stuff. Like I'm not a hard ass sometimes,
Yeah.
but I look and then a couple more, and I'm like, I turn to my guys, I'm like, get them out of here. And
Yeah.
if they don't get out of there and they don't respect you, then I'm gonna handle it.
100%.
And most of the time, I don't have to get involved, but I would say once every 6 months, I have to get
Somebody
involved.
is being a little hard-headed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think it's good because also the kids need to respect the coaches, and it's almost like they're torn between, do I listen to mom and dad or do I listen
It's
to my
two
coach?
authority figures.
Yeah.
2 different authority figures.
And it's a lose-lose for the kid because it's like they're
Yeah.
going to get in trouble some way or another.
Yeah.
So it's like you're making them make the most impossible decision anyway. It's not fair.
It's
the
not fair
child.
to them.
Yeah,
not.
no, I see it all the time. Not just where I coach, but parents do this everywhere, and especially at competitions. I see where the coach is, coaching them while they're in the middle of competing, and you got parents screaming the opposite,
Screaming.
and it's like, what the? How could they listen to both of you at the same damn time? Like, just be the timekeeper, or maybe repeat what the coach is saying if you really have to say something, or say nothing at all, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard. Now, are you somebody do you go and help coach the kids at the competitions too?
Yeah, that's why I'm always present.
More
Even though I
involved.
don't coach it, I'm still present with them. And like I'll jump on the mat and watch them roll and help them and that type of stuff, but I don't teach. But when we go to the competitions, I still go. I still go.
Gotcha.
I enjoy it. I like it. And like I said before, there may be one. There
Right.
may be that one, and they're going to end up working with me at some point.
Right.
So I go and I support them and I enjoy it. And
That's really cool.
I feel like competition for me when the adults go, especially at my higher levels, I take it personal in the way that that's really my job.
Yes.
Like that product is why people come and train with me.
Yeah.
For the kids, it's a little different. I almost have a little more fun with it.
Yeah.
I get to kind of go and see them smile and enjoy it.
Yeah.
And when it breaks down to it, that's really what it's about. So I still like to do that.
Yeah. And it's important for you to like be involved like that. Like I think
Yeah.
it makes a big difference. Like people notice when you're making the effort to be a part of things like that.
Yeah, of course. I usually go and I'll drive with the coaches and we go down and make it a little bit of a thing.
That's nice.
But yeah, I like it. I still enjoy it. And
That's awesome.
my nephew's in the program too.
Oh, nice.
So I get to go and watch him compete.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so he's in my boot camp right now, actually. He's in a little bit of a trouble, but...
Is that a real thing you have?
Yeah, well, no, he's in the Mike...
I was like, wait a minute.
In the Uncle Mike boot camp
okay.
And so, because he went out to his last tournament and got smoked. I mean, just straight up smoked.
How old are we talking?
He's like 7, 8.
Okay, he's pretty little.
He's young, but he knows.
Yeah.
He knows what he's doing. He's a jokester, so I was like, oh, you're in Uncle Mike's boot camp now. So I go and I watch him in practice, and he's been doing a lot better.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, he'll be older one day and be like, I'm glad that you're a little bit harder on me.
Yeah,
he'll be a little monster.
Mm-hmm.
Now, does your gym only do jujitsu? You're not doing do you have Muay Thai or do you
we
have all of that?
Muay Thai, boxing, and wrestling too.
Okay, and then you're not a part of coaching any of that. Correct?
No, I let them do
you
their
got
thing.
people who do their thing.
Yeah.
Is it a different set of coaches than your jiu-jitsu coaches?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah,
so you brought in like specific people for that.
Yeah. I just I let them do their thing, and there's always someone that enjoys it, and I don't really push them to compete as much.
Mm-hmm.
That's just there so that this way, if guys want to do MMA or something like that, they have their coaches.
Yeah.
And they can run with that, and then I'll be the head coach and I'll put together everything off that. So.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Now jumping back really quickly, so I know you said you started like how many years ago did you say? It was like a crazy number.
Yeah, 26.
Do you remember like your very first moment of being introduced to jiu-jitsu?
Mm-hmm.
What was it?
Yeah, I was doing traditional martial arts at 7, and that school brought in Sambo.
Oh, okay.
They would do grappling a couple times a week, and I actually really loved it.
Yeah.
And out of nowhere, that school ended up closing.
Okay.
So my parents tried me in like a couple different things because I didn't want to stop training. And I was kind of a shy kid, so it was good for me.
Yeah.
And then we went to a random jiu-jitsu school and ended up training there, and I quit everything else, and I was like, I want to do this.
Yeah.
And it was very different back then. There was no kids program. I worked with the adults program.
Oh wow, yeah.
There was nothing.
And at this point, you were what age?
12.
12. Okay.
12.
Yeah, still pretty young.
It's just a young. But for back then, it was young.
Yeah.
Because when I was 12, what was it? Man, 1998. So I mean, there wasn't many people that even knew what jiu-jitsu was.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a very different time. So very different time. They would roll. I had guys like go crazy on me at 12 years old. And like
wow.
12, 13, 14 years old. It's very, very different mindset now.
Jeez.
Yeah. But I mean, that's okay. Like I can look back on it and
it made you who you are, right?
Yeah.
So then from there, you just continued kind of like you were thrown into the fire and you just kind of never looked back. You just stayed with the adults and then eventually jumped into, opening your own gym.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was teaching a lot of practices at my academy that I was training at down in Westchester, which is like 45 minutes from me. So I would teach a few times a week down there, even at like 16, 17 years old.
Wow. Yeah. So it just became like a huge part of your life unexpectedly, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know from a pretty young age, like, this is what I want to do? Like, I want this to be my career.
Yeah, I knew.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I did. I knew going through high school. I knew going to college. I didn't even really want to go to college. I did it to make my parents happy.
Yeah, like a formality.
And I got my credits just in case I was going to be like a police officer or something. I'll be honest, my parents really weren't into me wanting to open up my own school and my own
I imagine
business.
It's scary.
It was not a popular choice, but they see me now and they're like,
you did
all
the
right,
right
you
thing.
did the right thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I could see as a parent, you're like you're gonna be a gym owner. Like,
yeah.
It doesn't. I mean, it's either you're gonna make it or you're not. There's not much of a gray area.
No, and I love it. I've always loved it, and I think that they understood that.
Yeah.
And I think going back to like the helicopter parent thing, and my dad drove me to every practice back in the day.
Oh, that's cool.
Every practice, and never once did he say a word.
Really?
He sat there.
Huh.
He would talk to people that would come up and talk to him, and like he made friends with the people I was training with.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny, but never, ever did he try to coach me. Not one time.
Now,
He's
what about
never
after?
trained before.
Would he ever say anything to you like
No,
the ride home?
The only thing he would do when we went back is he'd be like, "How'd you do today?" And I would tell him how I did.
Wow.
And he'd be like, and he would never really give me any sort of advice. He would just kind of encourage me to keep going.
That's nice.
And I take that. And I think he did the right thing.
100%.
I was self-motivated. I would go, and when I got my license, I viewed summer as a way that I could keep training more. I was like, I could go to morning classes. Like, I'm going.
Yeah.
I never needed a push like that. I would go.
Yeah.
So
No, I could see how that was the right move because I think sometimes when parents are a little too involved, it does the opposite effect. Yeah. So your dad just made it like, no matter how you're doing, I just want you to go. So you didn't have like this fear of like disappointing, or a lot of kids do have that though.
no,
as
he let me do my thing.
That's
and
great.
trust me, I made plenty of mistakes, but he let me make them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, what about your mom?
She was not allowed to go to my practices or my competition. She was banned. Very different.
Banned
She's
by you?
Banned by me and my dad. I was like, she used to go to a couple of my tournaments, and she would just, like, I used to suffer from performance anxiety to begin with.
Yeah.
Like, I was just a very anxious kid. I had to work through that type of stuff. And, like, having her there was the worst combination ever.
Oh my God.
I was like, Ma, I'll call you after.
Yeah.
Like, you're not allowed
please.
to come anymore. Like, and she wasn't a helicopter parent, but she could tell that I was nervous and just kind of, like, overdid trying to help.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, would be like a little hyena in the background. And I was like, that's it. We're done. Like, this is it. Like, me and Dad are going to call you after this is over. And,
We'll give you the highlights.
Yeah. And,
I love it.
Like, she would be the substitute driver before I got my license down there. And she would be okay there.
Yes.
She would be okay there, but I always preferred that my dad drove her.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you know Yara and Nancy, the girls that go to Webb, but they had a similar story. Like they said they're black belts now, but when they were competing at blue belt level, they were competing every weekend. And they said, like, I was like, did your parents go? And they were like, one time. And they're like, after that, no, because their mom and dad would be on the sideline, like, so nervous about them getting injured. And they would make them so nervous because they were so nervous.
Yeah, it feeds off each other.
Yeah. And that's 100% how my mom would be too. And my grandmom always says, like, if I come and they're hurting you, like, I'm going to run on the mat with my pocketbook. I'm like, don't come.
Yeah, please just stay
home. Because I'm going to be thinking about that the entire
Yeah.
freaking time. Actually, my parents have no idea anything about jiu-jitsu. And my very first competition, they're standing next to my coach and I have somebody's videotaping me and I literally have the girl's back. I'm singing in a choke and you can hear my dad go, is she winning? And I'm like, Jesus Christ. I literally have the girls back. And I was like, yeah, they're confused. Like, it's nice you came, but they were no help at all. But the support was nice.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Always.
That's so funny. So you only have a daughter, right? Okay.
Yeah,
that's
that's
awesome. No, but I like your take on how you kind of just let her do her thing. You're not a helicopter parent and you're not trying to force something that's, going to make her resent it. I think all parents should take away something from that conversation because you could really ruin it for your kid in any sport, not just jiu-jitsu.
Anything.
And really anything in life, actually. So.
Yep.
Yeah. So what's next for you? I know you said you have a competition coming up.
Yeah,
or a match?
EBI in December.
Nice.
The official announcement I think will come out soon. But
Okay.
I accepted the invite.
That's awesome.
I'm going up in weight at 170, and like I don't usually compete that heavy, but I'm just gonna do it.
Yep.
I just want to do it. Went through a lot this year. I actually broke my neck.
Jesus.
I
Oh my
herniated
God.
3 of my discs in my neck.
I did not know
And
that.
I was
Wow.
competing through it.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting surgery in July.
Wow.
Rehabbed it, and now I've been able to train.
Jeez.
So just through all the obstacles, and I'll be able to share a stage with Matt and Darren.
That's cool.
And I just view it as an opportunity to just go in and just put my name into the hat and bet on myself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, you should. How did the injury happen? From jiu-jitsu?
It's definitely from jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So I had herniations in C5 and 6 before.
Okay.
So they were older, but the epidurals took the symptoms away, and I felt fine for a long time.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, like, I would say around April, March or April, I started getting really bad shoulder pain in my left shoulder, and I didn't know why. Like, I was very confused. And I just I was like, well, I probably tore my rotator cuff. That's how bad it was.
Right.
And I kind of was like, look, I had a couple tournaments coming up and a couple matches coming up, and I was like, I'll take care of it after.
Yeah.
I'll get a cortisone shot. I'll move on. I'll be fine. Just because, I'm not smart and I'm
That's
not
what
a
us
doctor.
jiu-jitsu people do.
Yeah, they're like, we'll put some dirt on it and we'll keep going. But it ended up traveling. So the pain started traveling from my shoulder. Then it went in through like the base of my neck and ran under my arm.
Oh, God.
And down through my tricep and went all the way to my fingertips. And it started shutting off function to my hand. Like, to this day, I can't feel my fingers.
That's crazy.
On this side. So it hit the ulnar nerve. But my hand is functioning again, which
That's
is nice.
good.
But it was like curling my fingers. I couldn't feel them. The pain in my arm was crazy. And it was very heat sensitive. So, like, if it was really hot out, I didn't even want to be outside.
Wow.
Like, it was either, and the pain associated with neck and nerve pain is just wild.
Yeah.
I've never in my life had to deal with something like that because it's either you're bad in a lot of pain or you're in excruciating pain.
100%.
You
Yeah.
know, and my pain tolerance, at least I feel, is pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
And for me to have to go to the hospital just due to pain,
Yeah.
I had to go a couple times.
Yeah, it's serious.
That's bad. And
Yeah.
it just got to the point where even the epidurals, I had 3 epidurals within a month. What was it? A month and a half? Something like that, a month and a half. And then I knew that I was going to get surgery at the end of May. I was like, I'm just going to have to do it. Like, there's no other choice. I have no other choice.
Yeah.
So I did one more match at Men of War in June. And then I was like, okay. And I kind of shut it down from there. And I got surgery at the beginning of July.
Were you in a brace and everything?
No. So what they did was I was lucky enough that they didn't want to do a disc replacement.
Okay.
They went in and drilled a bigger hole into the vertebrae itself.
Oh, okay.
And so that this way the nerve could fire. And then I had
Gotcha.
a bunch of like wear and tear on the discs. So they went in and shaved the discs down.
Oh, geez.
And then they moved the nerve ending a little bit so that this way it would fire, and they trimmed the herniations.
Okay.
So they did that on 3 discs. So,
How long was the recovery?
just over 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
just
you
over
couldn't
3.
train at all.
No,
That must have
definitely
been
not.
tough
And
for you.
It was pretty painful in the beginning, especially like the first month and a half.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to at least come back in and do some type of like movement or something
Yeah.
because I got bored.
Of course.
And I will say, like, after a couple weeks, I was in less pain, even though the cut was fresh.
Mm-hmm.
I was in less pain than I was before the surgery because I didn't have pain down my arm. My hand was really weak. Like, I couldn't open a bottle cap.
Wow.
Like, I couldn't. Like, I just
Yeah.
couldn't grab it. Like, I would grab the bottle cap and it'd be twisting it and it just wouldn't come off.
Right.
And I'm like, what in the world is going on? Like, this doesn't make any sense. But I rehabbed that. I can
great.
open up bottle caps.
Yeah.
So
Thank God.
that was like a major milestone. I did that mid-August, and
That's
I kept
awesome.
track of it.
Good. And now where are you at? Would you say?
I feel I'm
100?
probably about like 70 to 75%. I
Gotcha.
still have a little bit of like lingering issues, but I could train full.
That's good.
I could train full. I'm doing my camp, and
this will be the first match since
will be
all
the
this.
first one
Yeah,
since
so it's
all
a
of
big deal.
yeah.
This kind of like proves to yourself that, you made that recovery.
Yeah, I made
That's
the
awesome.
recovery, and there's always going to be obstacles.
100%.
No matter what you do. So this is just something that I want to do. And
Yeah,
I'll go back
good
down
for
to
you.
155, 145
Yeah.
and stop eating burgers. So
Are you doing the higher weight because you didn't want to have to do the cut, or is it the style of jiu-jitsu?
No, it was because of the event. So I saw that the combat jiu-jitsu was at 155 and I knew Matt wanted to do it.
Okay, so it just made
So
sense.
I was
for
like,
you
all right,
to-
Matt wants to do it. And then I saw, they have EBI too. And I hit him up and asked what the weight class was for that. And they said 170. And
You're like, all right.
I was like, I'm not really 170, but you know what?
wanna
Screw
do
it.
it.
I'll do it anyway.
Yeah.
And it's just a way that we could go and compete with each other
Yeah.
and take care of
It's
each other
really
and have a good time. So
Sometimes it works in your favor to go up. Have you ever noticed that? Like sometimes
Sometimes.
going up, you're
Sometimes.
quicker and more flexible.
yeah,
so
and
you
I don't
never
have
know.
to. I'm not going to be depleted.
Yeah, you're not gonna be weak.
Yeah, so,
So-
that's a little bit different.
Prize yourself.
But like I walk usually at like 65 to 70 anyway. So
Yeah, so it's not a huge
yeah,
difference. That's good.
yeah, it's not too bad.
That's awesome. And you said it's you, Matt, and somebody else.
Darren,
Yeah.
so he's one of my pro MMA fighters. He actually has a win over Mirab.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Cool.
as
That's
a,
very
in
cool.
MMA, which
That's
is really
awesome.
cool.
Definitely.
And he's very talented. Not so much. He hasn't done a lot of jiu-jitsu tournaments,
Mm-hmm.
but MMA wise, he's very good.
Yeah, but it's cool that collectively you guys are working towards this goal together. I'm sure it's very bonding in a way as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And each person is different.
Mm-hmm.
The way that I am getting Darren ready is very different than what I'm getting Matt ready for.
Yeah.
He's two very talented people, two very different mindsets.
Yeah. Now you'll be coaching both of them that day.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that? Because I know some people can't, they can't get into that mindset.
It's 3 different days.
Okay,
They're
but
doing
still.
women, combat jiu-jitsu, and EBI. So I think I actually go first.
Oh, well, that's good.
So
Because
that's
then you
good.
could get
so I
yourself
could
out of the
focus
way.
on me, and then
That's
I can
good.
go and coach them. But I've done this so many times before that I really don't care anymore.
Okay.
I prefer to go first.
Yeah.
But if I don't, I can do it.
You can? Okay. Because it is hard because it's lingering in the back of
Yeah.
your
I
head.
just shut it down. I'm like, it's not about me right now. You
Yeah,
shut that off.
That's good.
You learn how to do that. You shut it off, and then you move forward.
Gotcha. Oh, while we're on the subject, when you're competing, do you still get pretty nervous or do you manage that pretty well?
Always.
Yeah.
I always get nervous. There's never a time that I haven't, but I feel like I could channel it now a lot different. I get myself into a frenzy. I'm not gonna lie.
Really?
Like, I just think about the worst thing. Like, I just use the nervous energy and turn it almost like into an anger, and I go from there.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah. And which, hey, listen, some people don't like to do that. They like to stay really calm and take naps and whatever.
But what
And
works
I'll
for
stay
you?
calm up until a certain point, but then like I have to hit that switch and put my foot to the gas, and then that's what I just do.
Yep.
You know, and some people don't like it. Some people like it. I don't really care.
Yeah, I just like to hear what people say because I really haven't met anyone that says they don't get nervous. I think if they do, they're lying. But it's interesting. Some people channel it as anger. Some people try to trick their mind and convince themselves that they're just feeling excitement and not nervousness. I like that. I think that's interesting. And then some people just say that they like to listen to music. Some people like to sit there in silence. Do you like to like hype yourself up with music?
I'll put my headphones on and just ignore everybody.
Okay, so you like to
And
zone out.
you know, I'm a pacer, so like I'll go out and like walk around, but I'll do it by myself.
And you're
if
trying
I'm
to get your mind
competing.
off of it?
No, I focus on it.
You do focus
Yeah,
on
I
it.
focus on it. So
Okay.
this way, and I'll think positive.
Okay.
You know, I'm like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. And like, I'll
Game
work
plan.
myself. Yeah, it's like this is what we've worked on. This is what we're doing. And I'll just constantly talk to myself about it.
Gotcha.
You know, and if I can get myself into that mindset and get myself into the groove, then I start warming up. Then it's a process of warming up. All right, we're going to start slow, and then I like getting a hard warm up in. You know, I like sweating.
Yeah.
And then I break that first win, and then I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
And then when like, you know, they call my name out and we shake hands, I'm like, all right, I've done this.
Then it's like go time.
Yeah, we've been doing this for 20 plus years now. Like,
Yeah.
we're gonna go.
Exactly.
You know, and whatever happens,
Yeah.
you know,
Nothing you can do at
there's
that
nothing
point,
you
but
can
just do your best.
just go.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Do you usually have a game plan, like meaning like you know when you go out there that you're gonna either pull guard or wrestle, like you know what you're gonna do pretty much?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I run my camp. Like, I don't really have a coach, so I have to do everything that I tell everybody
Yeah.
else to do
Right.
on top of it. So I have cameras at the school, and I'll watch my rounds,
There you go.
and I'll kind of coach myself and be a critic.
Huh.
And then now I have some guys that'll watch the video with them and be like, listen, you know, I'm doing A, B, and C. What do you think?
There you
And
go.
we go
yeah.
over it. You know, I may not have a set coach, but I also have the understanding that I don't know everything.
Right.
You know, and if I'm going to be the only one to run it, that's not
No,
very
you need
smart.
other eyes.
You need other eyes.
Of course.
You know, and I've put someone in charge of this one.
That's good.
That I trust, and I think they're getting me ready the right way.
That's good.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's so important.
Yeah. Do you consider when you're getting ready for a camp like this, do you implement some cross training since you don't have a coach?
Yeah, we've been going down to Jersey.
There you go.
You know, we're here right
I
now.
was gonna say, right?
Yeah, we go down to Maplewood, and we go to Bodega and go train down there. I
Nice.
really like their vibe.
That's awesome.
I can't say enough good things about Kevon and Gianni.
That's awesome.
They're great, and it's not a huge room,
Mm-hmm.
but they all work hard, and they set just that atmosphere that I really like a lot.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and we've been going down there. When Matt was getting ready for Keith, I still wasn't quite ready to roll.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, dude, we need to get
Yeah,
you
that's
high
why you're
level.
still recovering.
Yeah, I was still kind of recovering, and I was like, I can't roll. I can coach, but I was like, I can't roll. You need high level
Yeah.
looks, and like, if I can't roll with him, you know, body types and everything, we have high level people, but it wasn't what we needed.
Of course.
So I hit up Kevon, and he was like, listen, we have classes at this time, and we started going down there, and that was
Nice.
it. Yeah, and then the rest is history. We kept going down.
How far are you from like Essential? Are you pretty far?
About an hour.
Yeah, you are still pretty
Yeah,
far. You're
about
pretty
an
up
hour.
there, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever dropped in there?
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
'cause
great guys.
Yeah, because I went in there recently. They have some high level people. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Crazy room.
Yeah,
I went with Amanda Levy, and obviously she's a beast. And just the women alone, like you know, it's hard to find high level women. It's like night and day between, you know, that room. It's
Yeah.
pretty crazy.
it's nuts. Yeah, they're great.
Yeah, like I pretty much die every time I leave there. I'm like, that was exhausting, but no, that's awesome. I'm glad that, you know, you found some cool people to supplement your training.
You have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
Just the growth of my school. Like, I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest thing. I have to keep it growing. You know, we've done a lot. I had to temper my expectations down a little bit with my guys that I have right now. They're young and hungry, and, you know, I've been working with such high level people for a really long time.
Yeah.
And I was like, I had to build that middle ground back up.
Right.
You know, and I'm excited for the beginning of next year for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the beginning of next year for them, like, I've seen some guys kind of take that step, and I'm like, they're kind of ready to take off. I want to see what I got in them.
Absolutely.
You know, I want to see what I got in them. There's about between 6 to 10 guys that I have my eye I'm not going to name them yet because I kind of want to like hit the ground running with them and
Of course.
not put a lot of expectations, but I know what I can get out of them. And if we can get them to the level that I think we can, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
No, that
And
sounds...
you combine that with what we already have, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that is really cool. Any women you have? Well, I know you have Marissa, but anybody else you have in mind that's
Yeah, I have a couple.
coming up?
Yeah, I have a couple young ones.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool.
One doesn't really like to compete much, but
Okay.
I'm on her a little bit. But one has been competing a lot and done really well. She's, in a much different weight class than Marissa. This girl, Kiara, I think she's going to do really well, too. I think she's tough. She's really tough. And she's in the school all the time, and I'm tough on her.
Yeah.
And she just takes it. She just goes.
That's awesome.
But I'm excited for her. I think that she can kind of take it far. But she's around the blue belt level, so she's not quite ready yet. But
right.
We're building.
She's getting there.
Yeah, we're building.
Well, you've been in this game for a while, like especially just owning a gym. You've been in that game a while as well. Any advice you have for people that are trying to either open up a gym or are trying to take their gym to the next level? Any advice?
Love it.
Enjoy what you do.
Love it every day. If it's your passion and you love it, you'll make it work.
Yeah.
You're gonna make your mistakes, and that's normal. Everybody makes mistakes. Like I don't even know how I'm open sometimes. But if you truly have a passion for it and it's something that you love, you will make it work. 100%. And it's always worth it. And remember, the alternative is you could be in a job that you hate and you're working 9 to 5 or whatever it is.
It's true.
And you're someone else's, employee.
Yep.
At least with this, you're your own boss.
100%.
And enjoy every moment. And it's not always going to be easy, but it's always worth it.
Yep.
And I think that's the best advice I could give to anybody. And it doesn't matter, how many championships you've won, because 98% of people in this world don't even know what jiu-jitsu is. So just do the best that you can and give your students everything that you could possibly give, and it'll come through.
Yeah, that's great advice, honestly. And you know what? As a business owner for any industry, like it's hard because you are not given a paycheck every week. Like you are only making money if you're doing well in that exact moment. So it's really freaking hard to be self-employed. It's really easy to give up, to be honest. So like you just said, one of the only ways to not give up is to be obsessed with what you do.
Hills and valleys, and always have the mindset of like, you can make it better.
Yep.
You can make it better. You're going to hit plateaus. Just like in anything.
Yeah.
In anything. I'd say the same thing in training. Like you hit a plateau in training, you have to make the adjustments.
Exactly.
If you don't make the adjustments, you stay the same. It's the same thing in business.
Yep.
It's the same thing in business. That's what jiu-jitsu's taught me, is that there's always a different way of doing things. And sometimes you become stubborn because you're stuck in your ways, right? Guilty as charged. So understandable. And sometimes it takes you a little bit longer than most to understand that. But if you do and you have that mindset, you will grow. So in business, if you hit that plateau, you have to sit down with whoever it is that helps you and that you trust, and you make the adjustments together. I have a little council that I'll meet up with, and I'll be like, what do you think that we should do? What do you think of A, B, and C? And we go through some different ideas, and then we put it into action.
Like within your gym, you mean? That's really cool. So you have people that you trust that you can kind of bounce ideas off of.
Yep. And that's something that's new. Yeah. I just started doing that.
Yeah, that's smart, because you know what? Like, no matter how amazing you are as a leader, like you said, there's always room for improvement, and you always have weaknesses, and you got to have people kind of fill in those weaknesses for you.
Yeah, and you spread, for me, I did everything by myself. So you spread yourself too thin. If you spread yourself too thin, then you're doing a little bit of everything and not enough of what you're supposed to do. If that makes any sort of sense.
No, you got to delegate.
You got to delegate, and that was really hard for me. I don't enjoy doing that, but now I feel like I have the right people in place.
You trust them.
And I trust them. That's the biggest thing, is the trust. And at first it's going to be a one-person show. But eventually you're going to get to a point where it can't be a one-person show.
Yeah.
It has to be done the right way, collectively. And as long as you can do that, you'll see things flourish.
Yeah.
And I've been able to do that, and that's really, like I said, I meet with them.
Right.
I talk about it, and I'm in constant contact with those people.
Right. And it's like important, the company you keep, right? Like you have to hire people that, have the same values as you, and people that you trust, because, what do they say? Like, shit spreads, evil spreads.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you don't have people around you that you can really trust, like, how could you build your business up, right? So it sounds like you've found a really core group of great people working under you that you can take a little bit of a step back if necessary. And that's important.
Yeah, it took some time.
And it's hard to find.
Yeah, it's hard to find. Yeah. And sometimes you got to go through some hard times to get there.
Yeah.
Not everything that you do is going to be easy. Like that was not easy.
Yeah.
That was tough.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, I'm glad I'm here right now.
Yeah. Well, some of that too sounds like you almost like grew it yourself, right? Like with Matt, like you brought him up to be, you know, the employee you kind of needed, right? You molded him the way you needed him to be. But that took time. I mean, it took years, it sounds like.
Yeah, it took time. And then like all the other guys too, it took time for them. Like a lot of them are around, you know, they've been with me 8 years, 9 years now, and they've took that step forward and they're like, we're going to help you.
Yeah.
And we're going to run with this.
Yeah. What do you think kept you going when it was easy to give up? What was in the back of your head?
Oh, my daughter.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. When things were tough and, you know, I felt like, man, this is brutal. Like it was brutal for a little while. Like I just thought of her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you just go, you find your why and you go.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, I'm like, I need to do it for me.
Yeah.
You know, I have to stop thinking about everybody else and do it for myself.
Absolutely.
You know, and then on top of it, you know, I have to be the best version for her.
Absolutely.
If I'm not the best version for her, then I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
You know, so and that just spreads. That mindset spreads through other people when you're the coach of the.
Yeah, it trickles down. Yeah. From the top.
Yep. And I always tell the guys, find your why.
Yeah.
Because when in the moment when maybe you're not thinking the way that you should about yourself, you're going to find that why and you recircles back to you.
Right.
And that gives you the momentum and the strength to rebuild and keep going.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can't always depend on motivation because it's not always going to be there.
It's not always going to be there.
Yeah.
And times get tough.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, that's really great advice.
Yeah.
Anything else? All good?
All good.
We actually went longer than you probably think. We're about an hour and a half in.
Damn.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for coming.
No
I know
problem.
you made a hell of a drive, and I've really been wanting to get you on, so I really appreciate you.
No, thank you so much for having me. It was awesome.
Yeah, no, it was fun.